Hello everyone, this time we're from Group 1 of the Sociolinguistics course. We'll present about Pidgin and Creole. First of all, I will introduce our group members. My name is Ahmad Mahasin Aqil as moderator. Then Febi Dwi Lestari, Khofifah Arum A, Aenun Kusuma, Sheila Nourma, Wendi Sukmawati, Alvin Nugraha, and Ramadhani Syazali S speakers.
Hello, my name is Sheila Nourma and I'm the first speaker of this group. And now I want to explain about the definition of Lingua Franca. We know that in this world there are many languages. There are Bahasa Indonesia, Thai, French, Korea, Japanese, Chinese, and others. These languages are used so that the people can communicate well. If we search on the internet how many languages in this world, maybe you can find the web states that in this world we have 7,000 languages. Because of these many languages, we can find some problems when communicating, and the alternative to this problem is the existence of lingua franca. So, what is a lingua franca? Lingua franca is a language or a mixture of a language used as a medium of communication by people whose native languages are different. It is from Italian language and French, and also known as a trade language, contact language, international language, and global language. In general, the lingua franca is used because the speakers cannot use their mother language. For example, if there are a Japanese person and Sasak person, they need Bahasa Indonesia as their intermediary because they cannot use their mother language. So we can understand that Bahasa Indonesia is one of the lingua franca. If we look more broadly, there is English, as we know that English is our international language. There is English, as we know that English is our international language. English can be used in anywhere, including other countries that are not the native speakers of English, so that English become lingua franca too. For example, if there are an Indonesia person wants to talk to Japanese person, and both of them don't understand both of speakers. I mean, like the Japanese cannot understand Bahasa Indonesia, and the Indonesian person cannot understand Japanese, so they need English to be able to communicate with each other. Maybe if one of them is not very fluent in English, they also can use like a simple English, so they can communicate well. But lingua franca is not only Bahasa Indonesia and English, but also Bahasa Melayu too. Bahasa Melayu, we can use Bahasa Melayu in Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, and Singapore. There are many more examples of languages that become a lingua franca, like Spanish that used in Latin America and others. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Franca solve communication problem among people of different linguistic background. Of course, this is good. People communicate with one another. This maintain mutual understanding, and people can also know about the culture, belief, and tradition of each other.
Next is definition of Pidgin. Pidgin is a language that has no native speakers, and Pidgin develop a means of communication between people who do not share the same language. Jadi Pidgin adalah sebuah wujud bahasa kontak yang digunakan oleh orang-orang dengan latar bahasa yang berbeda-beda. Kemudian, sebuah Pidgin ini biasanya memiliki tata bahasa yang sangat sederhana dengan kosakata yang tergabung dari beberapa bahasa yang berbeda-beda. Jadi singkatnya, Pidgin adalah bahasa dari suatu wilayah yang asal mula terbentuknya ini berasal dari beberapa wilayah dengan bahasa yang berbeda-beda yang kemudian menjadi satu. Untuk ilustrasi singkat mengenai bagaimana terbentuknya Pidgin ini, kita bisa mengambil contoh negara Inggris yang menjajah suatu wilayah. Kemudian si Inggris ini menjadikan wilayah tersebut sebagai membangun sektor pertanian di wilayah tersebut. Otomatis, mereka akan mempekerjakan orang-orang asli dari wilayah tersebut untuk dijadikan budak mereka atau pekerja mereka. Nah, kemudian si penduduk asli dari wilayah tersebut mau tidak mau, walaupun mereka tidak mengerti sama sekali tentang bahasa Inggris, tapi mereka mau tidak mau harus menguasai bahasa Inggris. Karena ya tidak bisa dipungkiri lagi, mereka harus bisa berkomunikasi dengan bos-bos mereka yang notabene memakai bahasa Inggris untuk berkomunikasi. Nah, disinilah proses Pidgin ini mulai terjadi. Terus tadi saya sempat mengatakan bahwa mereka penduduk asli dari wilayah tersebut tidak mengerti bahasa Inggris sama sekali. Terus gimana caranya mereka mengerti apa yang orang Inggris katakan? Nah, disinilah nalar manusia ini berjalan. Mereka menerjemahkan suatu bahasa melalui bahasa tubuh, melalui isyarat. Kayak misalnya kita didatangin sama bule. Terus bule itu ngasih isyarat ke kita kayak gini. Otomatis otak kita akan menerjemahkan bahwa orang ini pengen minum nih, kayak gitu kan. Nah, itulah yang terjadi pada orang-orang yang dari wilayah Pidgin itu terbentuk. Mereka makan bahasa isyarat itu setiap hari, dan mereka juga sering mendengar apa yang orang-orang Inggris itu katakan. Jadi mereka secara tidak langsung mereka ini belajar bahasa Inggris gitu. Walaupun ya mereka belajarnya senangkepnya mereka gitu. Tata bahasa yang asli mereka tidak tahu, bagaimana cara penulisannya mereka tidak tahu. Pokoknya saya ngomongnya seperti ini gitu. Kemudian karena budaya asli wilayah tersebut terjadi secara terus-menerus, akhirnya terjadilah percampuran bahasa di wilayah tersebut. Itulah bagaimana terbentuknya proses dari Pidgin. Kemudian teman-teman, Pidgin ini tidak hanya terbentuk karena dua bahasa saja, tetapi Pidgin juga bisa terbentuk karena 3, 4, 5 atau seterusnya bahasa dari beberapa wilayah yang kemudian menjadi satu. Thank you.
Definition of Creole. Noun Creole, plural noun Creoles. 1. A person of mixed European and Black descent, especially in the Caribbean, descendant of Spanish or other European settlers in the Caribbean or Central or South America, a white descendant of French settlers in Louisiana and other parts of the southern U.S. Number 2, a mother so formed from the contact of two languages through an European stage, Portuguese-based Creole adjective Creole, adjective Creole, relating to a Creole of Creoles. A restaurant serving food international and Creole cuisine from French Creole, Creole from Spanish Creole, probably from Portuguese Crioulo, black person born in Brazil, from Creole, the breed, from Latin Creole, produce Crete.
The next slide is characteristics of Pidgins. The first is have no native speakers. As I mentioned, Pidgin's languages have no native speakers. They are languages that appear very suddenly, very quickly, when there is a need for communication in a given situation. The second is a product of multilingual. A Pidgin language is a kind of compromise between two different languages or between several languages. The third is unstable grammar. The resulting language is a very simple language using only basic English vocabulary and a very non-English grammar. And then socially limited. When Pidgins were first developed, they were usually restricted in use, which means that they were only used for certain purposes, for example in work or trade. The next is spoken by millions as means of communication, and the next is not used as a means of group identification, and then short-lived, and then as VO syntax, and then no affixation, and the last is limited vocabulary. The resulting language is very simple language using only basic English vocabulary so that the vocabulary is limited. The next is characteristics of Creole. The first is product of expanded Pidgins. So, Pidgins don't have native speakers. They come about because of the need for an intermediate language. But if that language survives and becomes the native language of the next generation, then now is a Creole language. The second is nativization. Nativization is when Pidgins pass on to new generation and become a mother tongue which is acquired by children. The third is consistency. The next is stable grammar. The next is expanded vocabulary, and then systematic, and then complex sentence structure, and the last is long-lived, attained as mother tongue.
Hello, I'm Febi Dwi Lestari, and I want to explain about differences between Pidgins and Creoles. The first is Pidgin is a linguistic communication that comprises of components of two or more other languages, and it's used for communication among people. It can also be called business language because it is not the first language, whereas Creole is a language that was at first a Pidgin but has transformed and become a first language. The second is structural difference. Creole languages have the subject-verb-object, whose order varies. Pidgin can have any possible order. Also, reduplication is a common and general process in the Creole languages, but is not very often found in Pidgins. The third is one important difference between Pidgins and Creoles is that Pidgins do not have first language speakers while Creoles do. However, this is not easy to make out because there are more and more extended Pidgins beginning to acquire native speakers. Extended Pidgins refer to when a Pidgin becomes a Creole. The cultural side of a Pidgin usually defines this. This means that more Pidgins are becoming first languages. The fourth is another difference is that Creoles may originate through abnormal transmission, but as children acquire them, they must comply with the blueprint of language that can also be referred to as how the language is going to construct it and form. Blueprint here is comparable to how we relate to a blueprint of a house. However, for Pidgin, as they are a result of a second language, although they have to be learned by adults, they do not have to be acceptable by children. This means that Pidgins do not have to comply with the blueprint of language. Pidgins, before they become accomplished languages in a community, are always second languages and used after teenage. Okay, thank you.
Example, Pidgin and Creoles. Pidgin. When using a Pidgin, it is often rather simple to understand what is being said if you already know the stronger language like English. You just imply your eye on it, looking for the most basic word and elements. An example in Nicaraguan Pidgin English would be the question, how you day, which can easily be understood to mean, how are you doing today? The words are the same or shorter, making them easier to learn, and the extraneous ones are removed. Spelling can also be simplified, such as I know no for I do not know. The first no is used to imply the negative, with the second one being a phonetic spelling of no. A few more examples are gimme or give it to me. I define, and English is I'm fine or I'm doing well. And the next is I no sabi is I don't understand. And the last is when did they happen is what's going on or what's happening. The next slide is about Creole, Pidgin. Pidgin is one of the official languages of Papua New Guinea, which is located in Southwest Pacific Ocean. Pidgin comes from the English word like talk is talk or to speak, and Pidgin is pidgin or pidgin language. Pidgin cut most of its vocabulary from English, but words of English origin are usually pronounced quite differently following phonological rules inherited from Austronesian language of Melanesia. For example, is plus in the English is place or hometown, and close to is close to or nearly, and the last is Christmas is Christmas. This Christmas means Christmas, but in Pidgin, your age is also measured by number from Christmas you have lived. For example, you got Hamas this Christmas means how old are you? And I got 10 Christmas, this means I am 10 years old. Because speech conjunction come from small English vocabulary, often one simple word is used to cover the whole set of synonyms in English. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, conclusion. Thus, language, Pidgin and Creole, are often considered simplified language and consciously born from a practical situation of interlinguistic communication. They have their own characteristics that make them to be unique to be investigated and learned. By comparing them, we will perhaps find some information that useful for language development. And that's all for our presentations. If there is any error in speaking, we apologize. Thank you and have a nice day.